I really like to make sure that I'm incorporating real-world problems into my activities so that they can see how the real world is connecting to the algebraic concept that we're learning. So today, guys, we're working on project 6, which is dealing with piecewise functions and graphing transformations. Piecewise functions, we watched a video lecture on that last week, and transformations is what we covered or what you watched over the weekend. So if you have your project out, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what we're going to be doing with that, and then I'm going to send you guys on your own in your groups to continue working, okay? For the first question, it's a piecewise example dealing with commission. So many of you guys are at least aware of a job that involves sales. Okay, a salesperson goes and tries to sell some product, and oftentimes they're earning commission on that. So a basic example would be like a car salesman, right? Now, depending on how much that salesman sells in a given month, that changes the amount that they earn in their commission. That first problem is giving you an example of how the commission is given out. I would encourage you guys to make sure you're reading very, very carefully. The wording of that problem is very, very important. So you got to read really carefully. What might help you guys is that when you read that, then try to go and outline the information that's given. Write it in your own words. If you remember from the example that we did on the video, it had it kind of bulleted how the gas rates were charged. You could do that with this problem as well, okay? So project 6 actually had 2 different portions. There was one portion dealing with piecewise functions and then another portion dealing with transformations. With the piecewise function, what I wanted students to do was be able to use their real life experiences to solve a problem and then see how that connects to modeling a piecewise function. So they were able to just read a word problem and see, okay, based on what the information is that they're telling me, I can figure out how much money this person is making in commission, which a lot of people can relate to anyway. As far as the transformations question, what I wanted them to do is see the connection between how we're changing the equation or the function and how that relates to the change in the graph. When they can see that side by side, it's going to help reinforce all the rules that they're learning in their lectures. I decided to flip my classes a few semesters ago, and a lot of thought went into that because I kept on getting students complaining that, you know, in class they understood what we were doing, but then when they would get home to start working on their homework, all of a sudden they didn't have the support that they needed. And that's, you know, the main benefit of that flipped classroom. All that practice, they get one-on-one instruction with me almost every single day. You know, a colleague of mine, Professor Kasha, he actually explained that learning math takes place in 3 stages. The first stage is understanding, which is what happens during a lecture. The second stage is learning, which is where they're putting those concepts into practice, typically with some help. And then the third stage is their mastery, where that's the independent, I've got this, I can own this material. In a traditional, just regular lecture, they're with their instructor only for the first phase, for the understanding phase. Everything else is done on their own. With the flipped class, the videos, they've got me because it's my videos, so they are understanding with me. And then they come to class and we're learning together, really trying to understand these concepts and put them into practice. And then on their own, they get to go home and they get to master these concepts on their own. Okay, so we just talked a little bit about the flipped learning. Essentially, my students at home watch their lecture videos, and then we come to class and we're either working on some mechanical practice or we're working on an active learning activity like the project that we saw. I like that for all the reasons stated before. The projects are great because they're getting an opportunity to work with the content outside of these very abstract applications. They're looking at real world examples. we do a lot of group work because I think it makes the learning environment a little bit more fun. It makes it more social. I don't make students get into groups. I don't pick their groups. I like them to have the freedom to either work alone or work with whomever they want. And it does help keep the vibe kind of enjoyable as opposed to just sitting there working through projects and working through math problems. So during our class period, I'm continually formative assessment, going through, looking at their work, making sure they're on track, asking them questions to either get them more on track or to make sure that they're understanding exactly what they're putting down. And then as far as a summative assessment, I grade their projects. So they turn them in, I grade them, give them feedback, and they also have a unit exam at the end of each unit. The main thing I learned about this activity was that my students had an easier time modeling an abstract algebraic function after they had worked out a couple concrete examples. So when we were dealing with a commission versus sales type function, I had them figure out what's the commission for this much sales, what's the commission for this much sales, what's the commission for this much sales. And that allowed them to develop a pattern, and that was helpful in creating the algebraic function that represents the relationship between commission and sales. One of the things that I noticed students struggled with when they were developing the function was to decide what portion of the sales went to a certain level of commission. So there was an example that had a total sales of $90,000, and certain portions of that $90,000 in sales earned different levels of commission. So I'm thinking perhaps I'll include some intermediate questions between them that just has students asking specifically how much of the sales is earning this much commission, how much of the sales is earning this much commission, and then that will help them in creating the entire salary for that individual based on $90,000 in sales.